let's talk a little bit about healthcare now. Healthcare, I mean, it's a very broad kind of sector. I mean, you've got on the medical side, you've got the biotechs, which can be their own animal, just with the speculative nature of those, the FDA announcements, and phase 3 trials, clinical trials, all of the things that can happen there. Merger and acquisition activity, so much there. You've got the products, you've got the systems equipment, you've got the hospitals, you've got the big drug makers. So how is someone to make sense of all of these different areas in the medical sector and kind of figure out where that strength truly is?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're looking at XLV, I mean, this was a pretty sharp drop down to the 200-day moving average. You might think, why would I want to be invested in the healthcare sector? But like you said, Justin, I mean, we have 14 different subgroups in the healthcare sector now. Healthcare, medical, kind of synonymous, but we've got 14 subgroups, medical related subgroups, and there's quite a few that still rank in the top half of our
Hmm.
197 industry group rankings. So while the XLV has come under some recent selling pressure, I'm still seeing a lot of good setups, and we talk about. We talk about new a lot when evaluating a stock, and there's just still a lot of good kind of news stories. And some of these news stories are coming from stocks that have been trading for a while, but um, so understanding what a company is doing that's new, that is kind of expanding market share and driving market share gains is important. So you really need to just get used to kind of analyzing an individual industry group, finding out how strong the leadership in the group is it just one or two stocks leading, or are there four or five stocks that are showing strength in a particular industry group? So the fact that the medical sector, the healthcare sector, still has quite a few groups, ranking pretty well based on 6 month price performance. I think it still makes it a sector worth watching a lot of really high quality names.
Hmm.
So, Ken, do you generally like to, by trying to find the strength, say within the healthcare sector, do you generally try to go from industry group down to the stocks, or more the bottoms up approach where you're looking at stocks and noticing, hey, these are all in medical products?
Yeah, most of my stock screening, Arusha, is just on individual stock basis. So it's not like
Okay.
I'm going to look at a sector and go top down and say, okay, who are the top stocks in this sector? I'll look through screens and see which stocks are rising in heavy volume. Just which stocks are piquing my interest, and if I happen to see several that are in the medical sector or healthcare sector, that might get me working a little harder to find out other leadership opportunities in the sector. So I start with the individual stocks, and sometimes it might be as simple as looking on the homepage of investors.com and the stocks on the move screen, and maybe
Yeah.
seeing some healthcare names in there, some medical sector names in there, the IBD 50, the Market Smith Growth 250, but seeing enough good action in several healthcare stocks that tells me it's a sector that is still home to a lot of potential market leadership.
Hmm. And it's interesting that you say that because in the medical sector, there are a few very large industry groups. For example, the medical biomed biotech in MarketSmith, we use a code for that. It's G8063, and that kind of shows you what the biomed biotech area has been doing. But there's 791 stocks in there, so I really think that the bottoms up approach is kind of the way to go because if you're thinking, oh, okay, there's something going on here, there's very big disparities sometimes between these stocks. And medical products, I mean, that one is up there too. There's 140 stocks in that group. Medical systems equipment, there's 75 stocks in that group. So yeah, a lot of these groups are kind of in the top number in terms of how many stocks are in the group, and so that can be a factor there in terms of sometimes there's leadership of, let's say, 10, 15 stocks, and unless they're the high priced ones, it might not even show up in the industry group.
Well, this is a pretty great thing about MarketSmith too, because we're looking at the biotech group right here, a weekly chart. But if you just go over to the right navigation and just go to stocks, stocks and group,
Hmm.
and then show all component data, and you just get a huge list of stocks in the group. And here you can sort by relative strength rating. You can sort by the dollar amount, how much the stock is up or down on any given day. You can even sort by volume percent change to see which stocks are seeing the heaviest volume up or down. And you can see volume was very heavy in several biotech stocks today. So, MarketSmith is a great way to evaluate an industry group. If you just go back to the weekly chart, we also list the top 5 stocks based on their relative strength rating, and that is yeah, there you go. And you can see these some of the leading biotechs. I'm not going to talk about any of these names, but some of them are Vertex got hit with some selling today. But yeah, the biotech group is huge. Um, and but I still like to look in this group because there are so many great stories, so many great pipelines, and there's a lot of profitable biotechs out there as well. And if they're not profitable, there are plenty that are showing huge revenue growth thanks to a marketed drug. So like this group a lot, and it's a definitely a place where you can find some nice winners.
Hmm. Rusha, just to kind of get your take, because I know that you actually kind of had some work that you did in the medical area and kind of some of that research and everything like that. Um, with some of these speculative names, I mean, I was just noticing as Ken had look at the stocks in the group. I mean, the ones that had some really heavy volume. I mean, they were trading for 50 cents, some
Right,
56
exactly.
cents and some of those. So the point I'm making here is there's a lot of very speculative names in this area. Is there anything that you do to kind of just make sure you're dealing with higher quality and the less, a little bit lower risk? Uh,
Yeah, I mean, well, generally, kind of like what Ken said, usually for me, one of the first areas that I start to go through on the weekends is the Mark Smith Grow 250.
mhm.
That's just casting a wide enough net. And what I'll look there, you'll just start seeing the higher quality names within a biotech or medical products start to come into those screens. So a lot of times that's usually how I find it. If I have a bunch of time on the weekend, maybe every once in a while, I might just quickly scan through some of the biotechs here. But yeah, a lot of these biotechs that are under, a few bucks, I'm just moving on. I'm not really paying too close attention to. I've always done better in higher price stocks anyways.
Yeah.
And so even with the biotechs, I think a good screen for me is to just sort by the higher price ones, and then Regeneron's at the top of the list, right? So that's generally how I do it. I prefer to stick with biotechs that actually have earnings and sales.
Mhm. And then Ken, about the story, and this is where sometimes it can be a little tough because I always find that there's like this little bit of push and pull. I mean, it's hard for me to follow a lot of the stuff. I mean, I took genetics in college and a few biology classes, and I really like reading Alison Gatlin's stuff because I feel like she does a really good job of breaking down what's going on in some of these. You know in some of these areas, why their innovations are important, but kind of getting to that end factor, that new factor. What do you kind of do in order to kind of get your mind around the implications of what some of these companies are doing, how they're impacting the healthcare area, and what prospects they have and what risks are involved with. Okay, look, if you've got this great idea, but if the clinical trials don't go the way you want, and these can be very years long processes, gosh, how much wasted time is there, and how quickly do you have to change those valuations?
Yeah, it's. I mean, listen, biotech. There's. Sometimes I'm just incapable of fully understanding. What a company that I'm looking at is doing. I will go to their website, and I find that the really quality biotech companies are going to tell a very good story on their website. They're going to have a very clear investor relations section. They're going to have a very clear pipeline section where they show what drugs are in what stages of development. So I really do get a lot of my information from the company's website to start. You mentioned Allison Gatlin, who does a great job covering the biotech industry for us, and she also, like you said, does a very good job of breaking down complicated subjects to layman's terms. But I think when it comes to a biotech, Arusha mentioned, you want to avoid those that are talking a good story. They don't have any revenue, they don't have any earnings. Fund sponsorship is still very, very light. You want to focus on the stocks that are showing nice increases in fund ownership, for example. I don't mind buying an unprofitable biotech as long as there's meaningful revenue growth, and that's one of the stocks I'm going to talk about. Isn't profitable, but it's showing really, really strong revenue growth in recent quarters, good fund sponsorship. So these are some of the things to look at. I would avoid the super speculative ones. Look at the higher priced stocks in the group, and don't think that buying a biotech stock at $1. Thinking that you're going to make 50% on your money if the stock goes up 50 cents, that's going to most likely be a long road. So look at the higher price names in the group, look at those that are seeing rising fund ownership, and then look at those that are, that at least have earnings and sales, or at the very least, good revenue growth.
Yeah, and especially in markets like this, you become a lot more appreciative of stocks that are institutionally owned.
Hmm.
Um, at least they'll have some of these stocks that have a lot of funds. They're going to come down just a little bit nicer than some of the others that really somehow one day they can start cratering.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and you just have to know the trading personality too of some of these biotech stocks. Some are just prone to volatile price swings, and but then again, some of the higher priced institutional quality stocks tend to trade in more orderly fashion. So it's always it's a big group, but sorting the group by composite rating, it just gives you a good idea of who some of the companies that are executing in the biotech space are, and there are really no shortage of candidates. Biotech stocks, frequently find a home in the Market Smith Growth 250. You'll find them in the IBD 50 as well.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that in terms of Bill O'Neill, who was the founder of Investors Business Daily. I remember as I was working with him, in 2000, 99, 2000. Um, I was very, very picky about my Can Slim stocks. I had read the book, and I noticed that he was getting into some of the medical, stock areas, healthcare areas, and they didn't have earnings, and so it was one of those things I asked him about. Specifically at that time, it was really the Human Genome Project. So you had, gosh, I don't even remember what the name of the company was. HGSI was the ticker symbol, but they were working on the Human Genome Project. Watson, of Watson and Crick fame, Nobel Prize winner, was heavily involved. And I remember him saying, "Look, with some of these, with some of these companies, they might not have the earnings, but the new is just so compelling." That he was willing to give those a shot, and he's had a number of medical stocks over the years. That, I mean, Amgen was one of those that is kind of of storied fame. Back in the 90s, when they had a product that was just phenomenal in terms of what it was doing for chemotherapy and cancer patients. Less um, less damage to their white blood cell counts. And then, of course, the one that kind of started him on his pathway to business was Syntax, way back in 1963. Of course, they did the birth control pill. One of the makers of the birth control pill. So medical
Yeah,
has been one of those areas that kept on coming up.
yeah, well, and the new, as you know, was very important to Bill. And I don't know if you wanted to, kind of categorize all the different letters of Can Slim, but I'd have to put the N right up
Mhm.
there near the top because anytime I used to go into his office and talk about individual stocks, the first thing out of his mouth was what's new, what's new going on at the company. So, again, the biotech group is a great place to find new. You just want to make sure you're focusing on the quality names and focusing on those that are generating meaningful earnings and revenue, and if not earnings, they're generating meaningful revenue that is eventually going to make its way to the bottom line.